23. Amir. Chucky started coming over just to hang, and I didn't like that at all. The first time was okay. He showed up unannounced and brought weed and coke, and the three of us ended up playing Soul Calibur 5 for like 9 hours. But the second time, he brought over that terrible girl Trisha and fed her pills all night while motor-mouthing about starting an amateur MMA league. Then the third time, he was totally fucking zapped, falling through the screen door, barely able to speak or keep his eyes open. He collapsed on the couch, mumbling about his dad, and pissed himself right there. After that, whenever I caught his SUV rolling through the parking lot, I just jet up to my room, locked the door, and let Tyler deal with him. Lou. It's a white room. The room breathes for me. A cube floating there. The cube whistles and measures my heartbeat. There's a dot on the wall. The dot speaks to me. The dot tells me that hundreds were killed and were thrown into the ocean so that no one would ever know. I woke. The room was dark except a rectangle of light, a doorway, a silhouette standing between the light and me. "Are you awake?" Jill's mom said. I lay there silent. "Come sleep with me?" Her voice shriveled and sticky cold. I pretended not to hear her and closed my eyes. Her footsteps padded along the carpet. The bed's weight shifted. She smelled all dry, powdery and beige. Her face went wet and she squealed, but she didn't touch me. I couldn't get back to sleep. I started taking the bus to work. I took on more shifts. I hid my money in a metal box in the bedroom closet. Arnie started selling pot and saving a little money too. We read the paper like grown-ups, scanning the classifieds, tracking apartment openings. We found a one-bedroom shoebox apartment in the ranch housing at the top edge of downtown, close to the bus stop, peeling cigarette yellow walls, a 3x4 kitchenette, a stained sunken couch. It was ours, an archipelago split from a wet and terrible continent. It was enough. Jill. The campus was a dead vision of the future, a span of ages, old, pyloried buildings broken up by blocky Blade Runner towers, gray concrete corridors buried beneath the ground, all like alien ruins. My dorm overlooked a soccer field and intersection. My roommate was a dumb girl from Rhode Island named Tilly who wanted to be a cop. Every night she got pissed drunk and rambled in her sleep about fucking bitches up. At times I considered putting snakes in her bed or setting her face on fire, but never did. Amir. It'd been a killing summer. Folks literally died in their houses, cooked alive. We didn't have AC, so I took cold showers all day to keep the heat off. We hadn't paid our gas bill, so cold water was all we had anyway. At night, the peepers and birds would cry and hum these abdominal trills, vibrating out through the wet heat into our rooms. Sometimes I'd hear Tyler humming along with them. Other times Tyler would be up all night slamming around his room, ranting, "Where are you? Where are you? Where are you?" I'd go over and see if he was all right. He'd unlock the door, open it a crack and say, "Yeah? What?" Books, candles, bottles, and ash strewn on the floor behind him. Cracks running through the window panes. "You okay? What do you think?" After the 5th or 17th time, I stopped checking altogether. Lou. We subsided on spaghetti and water. We put salt on the noodles to make them taste like something. We poured sugar in the water and called it dessert. The tap water was cloudy and tasted metallic, but it is what it was. But it was what it was. We had a shrine instead of a television, 3 candles, bundles of indigo weed, lovage and nettle, a dead moth and a slice of honeycomb I'd bought from the market. We'd pour the circle, whisper our caretakers' names, and touch between our legs, letting the strings wash between us, stroking and sucking on each other's flesh. We'd close the gate and wash our hands and sweep the salt beneath the table. He'd tell me that this was the only world he ever needed, that all he ever wanted were the walls and me inside them. He'd smoke pot and cigarettes and play with his phone all day. Sometimes I'd get home from work and it'd take minutes before he realized I was there. Jill. We read The Picture of Dorian Gray for English Lit. I wrote that it didn't make sense that the painting got uglier as Dorian became more evil, since evil things were actually very beautiful. Professor Hickey ringed that passage in red and wrote, "Maybe try being less pretentious." I threw my paper in the trash and headed for the duck pond. There was a campus-wide tobacco ban, and I had already been caught and threatened with suspension once, so I'd hide out in the nook between the pond and the art center. I crept down, dodging dirty honking geese and their shit, turning the corner into a concrete shelf. I jumped in my skin. Someone was already there. A girl. She yelped. "Sorry," she said, Irish red hair and a round face. She wore a black Rolling Stone shirt under a torn-up pair of overalls and clutched a sloppy rolled cigarette between her fingers. "Thought you were security." I didn't know anyone else knew about this spot. "I know, like, all the good spots." She took a drag and smiled. "But I can share." She said her name was Maddie, from Pennsylvania. She told me she had just gotten her first tattoo. "It's a witch," she whispered, grinning. "Want to see?" We smoked 2 butts each and talked about our majors. Hers was sustainable agriculture. Mine was undecided, but maybe something with drawing. I felt stupid. She tossed her butt in the pond and said she had to get to class, but that she'd see me around. I went back to the dorm. Tilly was out, but the reek of her perfumes, like crushed digital laundry detergent, clogged the air. I fell backwards onto my bed as the scent scraped at my throat. Above, in the corner, an orb, a gray ping-pong ball, buzzing. I sat up and squinted, small dark shapes wandering its circumference, 3 tiny wasps working their limbs into the beginnings of a paper nest. Something familiar crawled in my belly, tickled inside my chest. I took an old skirt and pinned it around the nest so Tilly wouldn't see. Each morning I'd peek behind the fabric and watch them, their thin, delicate legs circling the ball, expanding it. I kept them safe. Amir. The woods are dark. He walks by my side. Tyler's face and Tyler's body, but all wrong. His skin is loose, draped over another man's frame. His eye sockets wag in the breeze, nothing behind them. "Look," he says, pointing ahead into the void. A perfect red orb gently weaves up ahead, illuminating the tree branches in a square, tinted structure. The orb bursts like fireworks, and the glow holds long enough so I can see the dull textures and surfaces. The ground glitters and twinkles. The glitter leads to a small wooden building, a broken and burnt cabin. I woke up and went downstairs. Tyler sat at the coffee table. He'd covered it with old whirl packets, emptying their last remaining flakes and dust onto the lined piece of paper. His eyes were wet and puffy. "What's up?" I said. "They fucking banned it." "Banned what?" "This." He gestured at the packets. "Can't get it at Getty. Can't get it online. Can't get it anywhere." "I've got a nug we can smoke." "No, this is everything," he bawled. "They just took everything from me." Lou. Arnie said the world was ending. He dug through his backpack full of old world packets, emptying everything, every granule onto his phone screen. He tore out a page from the Encyclopedia of Saints. I know which one. Brushing the flakes into the center, he rolled the page into a joint. We took off our clothes and poured the salt. We lit the candles. Arnie lifted the dead moth to his lips and kissed it. Flecks of gray wings stuck to his saliva. His eyes went wet and he lit the joint. He exhaled and whispered to the candle, "I'm going to miss you so much." I took the joint and inhaled. I didn't even need to hum. The world became a golden disc, spun so fast it seemed at rest, a galaxy of black string washing between Arnie's body and mine. We wept thread and groped at each other, going wet, sucking at muscle and sinew, my penis filling him with bees, his filling me with moth's dust. We pushed through each other's bodies until our bones struck, and my ribs tangled with his, and his jaw tangled with mine, locking together. Our discs spun faster and faster, and we screamed and tore apart, and the discs were gone, and the candles were out and knocked on their sides, and we were just in the living room again, the strings crawling back into our holes and the regions between blinks. We gasped like black lung, spread across the floor, drenched, sweaty, and glazed with pearl. He went all the way wet, and so did I. Nothing could ever be like that again. Jill. I kept seeing Maddie at the smoker's spot. She'd mentioned she was going to sing karaoke later and asked if I wanted to come. I said yes. I met her outside Butterfield Dormitory. She was with her friends, Paige, Aubrey, Jerome, and Sacha. It felt pretty awful because they were all so close already, and I felt like I was nothing, even less than a ghost. But Maddie started passing out nips from her purse, and after downing a couple, we were all warm together, all of them kind and open, unfamiliar. We drove a town over to a club that'd still admit you if you were underage. In the parking lot, we smoked a bowl and sucked down a few last nips before heading in. The door guy checked our IDs and took each of our hands and stamped a thick red X on top. We grabbed a table, and Maddie headed straight for the DJ booth, snatching a pad of sign-up sheets and a binder. They got passed around our circle, everyone jotting down their names and songs. When they finally reached me, I said I was all set. Come on, Maddie nudged my shoulder with hers. How about doing one with me? I don't know. Do you know Paradise by the Dashboard Light? In a dozen scents and images flooded me. Driving out of town with Dad, howling along to that song, the way his truck felt so high above the rest of the world, how it smelled like old coffee and fake pine. Of course, I said. She smiled. Okay then. She handed in our cards and the DJ jumped in with a cringy rendition of I Got a Feeling. After her, an enormous, handsome man sang Genie in a Bottle. A middle-aged leather daddy did L.A. Woman, and a girl with the short blue hair did an insane version of Shoop. We went back to the car and smoked some weed, came back and caught Jerome wrapping up These Eyes. I was so high I almost wept. All right, the DJ said. Next up, we have Maddie Gaskar and Jill Trail. Maddie grabbed my wrist. Want to be Meatloaf or Ellen Foley? Let's just be both. She kissed me on the cheek. We caterwauled for 8 minutes about cold, lonely, deep, dark nights and glowing like the metal on the edge of a knife. We threw down our mics and ran out to the parking lot, and she pressed me up against her Passat and sucked on my lips. Later, when she brought us all back to campus, she asked if I wanted to come up to her room. I nodded. She wrapped her arm around my waist, steering me upstairs through Butterfield, occasionally pressing me against a wall or door to make out some more. Someone had spray painted the overhead lights pink so the halls were all lit like neon hell. We got to her room, she unlocked the door, and we pushed in. The door was half empty, just a bed, a dresser, and a mini fridge. My roommate dropped out, and they never assigned anyone new. She winked and put her index finger to her lips. Our secret. She began clearing the books off her bed. I looked at the top of her dresser. A breath caught and died in my throat. It was covered in bundles of dried plants, a few half-melted candles, a rusty horseshoe, and a nest of hair. Symbols like veins drawn in wax on the wood. My insides dropped through the floor. What's that? I whispered. That, she smiled shy. That is not something I can tell you about yet. Okay. Tiny invisible worms crawled through my shoulders and calves. It's just silly. It helps me process stuff, work things out. Okay. The room snapped apart. Time stopped, and my feet nearly came loose from the floor. I looked between the candles. Something stood there, a beige, breathing shape, a tiny rabbit, dancing on its hind legs. I pretended like my phone buzzed, took it out of my bag, and looked at the screen. I have to go, I said. She looked at me, puzzled and sad. It's my mom, I lied. Something's wrong. I have to take this. Maddie covered her lips with her hand. Oh God, I'm so sorry. Of course. Whatever you need. I put the phone to my ear and said, Hey, what's up? And left through the doorway, down the hall, down the stairs and out of the building. I crossed the campus to my dorm. I crawled into bed and squeezed my eyes closed while Tilly snored like falling rocks and the wasps hummed above my bed. Amir. That weird kid Arnie came down to the bridge, asking if I had any whirl. I told him nah. He got up close to my face and asked me again. I told him to get the fuck out of here. He started crying and walked back up the slope. I got home and Tyler was on the couch, watching TV, anime girls screaming and exploding beneath monster truck tires across the screen. "Hey," he said. "Hey, you dated that Sydney girl, right?" "Yeah." He didn't even look away from the screen. "She's dead, I guess." I didn't say anything. Figured you should know. Condolences. I went upstairs and lay on my mattress. I tried to feel some kind of way, but couldn't. Lou. I poured the ring of salt around me. I lit the candles, inhaling and exhaling each time the flame touched wick. I hummed. "Don't even," Arnie shouted, huddled on the couch. "It's too fucking sad." I didn't say anything, slipping a sheet between my heart and his. I whispered her name in my head and unzipped my pants. Nothing changed in front of me. Mundane textures. I focused on St. Gomnet's name, my breathing, trying to exhale her name without speaking, to paint it on the air with my eyes. My palms stroked up and down. Nothing. Then I focused only on the breathing. No name at all. No caretaker. My palms stroked up and down. I settled in between beats of my heart. My entire life. 1,000 years. Magenta prickled through my spine and ribs. My back arched rigid. I opened my eyes. A faint purple disc spun between the candles, bits of thread dangling down from the ceiling, dancing, diminishing and returning blinks. A length of twine wound from my penis, stretching forward and disappearing inside the disc. I spurted Pearl and clasped my palms together. I prayed for Arnie but didn't tell him what I saw.
Jill. My sister called the next morning. "Long time no speak." "I'm at school." The only excuse I could think of. "Been busy." "I know what school's like." I inhaled deep. "What's up?" "Just everything. Everything is up." "Okay." "Mom's losing the house. She's too ashamed to tell you herself. So yeah." I didn't know what to say. Jesus. I didn't actually feel anything, though I knew I was supposed to feel something. "She's going to have to move in with Aunt Mill." I can't believe it. Believe it. Not like you give a shit. I tried to conjure an adequate response, but then just hung up instead. I clamped my eyes shut and pulled the covers over my head. In the darkness, I saw a tiny brown rabbit dancing on its rear legs. It turned to me, and its eyes were like Tyler's. I tossed off my sheets, got dressed, went down to the food commons, and got in line in the low main station. A finger tapped on my shoulder. I turned. Maddie. She smiled with sad eyes. I went cold. "Hey," she said. "How's your mom?" "She's okay." I forced a weird smile. "Actually, no, that's not true." She tilted her head to the side. "If you want to talk about anything..." "No, it's fine. Totally." "You alone? Want to eat with me?" "No, I should probably get to class." "It's Sunday." "Sorry, I have to go." And I left, back up to my room. Something had changed. Something was missing. The skirt I'd pinned around the wasp nest was gone. The nest itself was gone. Tilly lay on her bed, scrolling through her phone. "There was a fucking wasp nest up there," she said. "Had to get security to clear it out. Don't hang up any more clothes or anything. Critters love to hide in that shit." I got into bed and lay on my side, facing the wall, pulling the covers over my head, clamping my eyes shut, feeling like I was flipping through space on the mattress, disconnected from all gravity. Through the dark, I could see a thin, flesh-colored sheet dancing in the emptiness, a sheet with a face. He smiled at me. That night, 12 kids on my floor OD'd. Lou. Arnie stopped leaving the house. He almost stopped talking altogether. I stopped asking whether he was going to look for a job and tried to accept the life we had as it was. I performed the ritual in the morning before work, while he was still asleep, humming under my breath, stroking, slipping between my heartbeats, the strings, the disc. I prayed for him, and the disc devoured the strings from my hole. Nothing whispered back to guide me. Amir. Tyler's teeth started falling out. I'd find them all over the apartment, in the kitchenette next to the dish rack, on the coffee table in the living room, in the bathroom medicine cabinet. Sometimes I'd dream of his mouth, gray and purple vines sprouting from his gums. He'd stuff his fist in his mouth, sucking and slobbering, before wiping the drool on grass and tree bark. The landscape changed depending on the parts he marked. Jill. I ran into Jerome in the library. Maddie thinks you hate her, he said. What? She says she keeps reaching out and you keep snubbing her. She's bummed. Oh. I'm not going to say you have to be best buds. Do whatever you want, but I'm curious. Why don't you like her? I don't. I looked away. It's not that I don't like her. But? I don't know. Then. Do you know what's with the candles and hair and stuff on her dresser? He screwed up his face. Is that it? Oh God. Are you Christian or something? What? No. It just seems weird. Oh, it's totally weird. Just some new age thing. Like Wicca or something. Totally harmless. I love her to death, but I couldn't give a crap about that stuff. I shook, flared up. Totally harmless. I wanted to smash his face in, to tell him that he was an idiot, that he didn't have a clue what he was talking about. Instead, I nodded and said, okay, and left it at that. Lou. I got home from work and he was hiding under the card table, curled up, wet nose and eyes, a sloppy oval of salt poured around his body. I crawled onto my knees and ducked my head under. I asked what was wrong. He asked if I was one of them. It's me, I said. They're coming inside. Who? Did you see them? Who's coming inside? It's no good. They're breaking in. No one else is here. He shook his head. He wouldn't come out. I climbed under the table and held him while he went wet until he fell asleep and I almost did. I got up, slowly as to not wake him. I poured the salt. I knelt at her shrine. I lit each of the candles. I blew gently through my lips. I unzipped my pants. I stroked my palm up and down, nestling in between my heartbeats until my body vibrated, and I held it there, breathing circular. The strings crawled faintly from the corners of the room, rapping against the window. My purple disc spun between the gate. I shut my eyelids and saw through them into the living room and through the walls into outside. Nothing strange out there. Nothing trying to break in. Nothing that shouldn't have been. I prayed for Arnie, painting my wish on the oxygen. I glanced my palms with Pearl and closed the gate. I got up, washed my hands, and crawled back under the card table, wrapping Arnie in my arms. Amir. It was early morning. The moon was waxing and Tyler was stomping all over the house, up and down the stairs, humming, louder and louder until it became a wail. I got out of bed, pulled open the door, and stepped into the hall's dark. Tyler froze. He was naked except for one sock, his whole body covered in fresh bloody cuts, like veins but on the outside. He turned and stared into me, mouth agape. His penis drooped soft, stuck to his thigh, a gentle push of urine streaming from the tip down his leg, painting a black circle in the carpet. Do you see? He said. I looked into his eyes. His pupils had swallowed the irises. Nothing inside. Do you see me? Jill. Jerome invited me to a party. I told him I had finals. We've all got finals, girl. I think I'm good. I'll message you the address, just in case. I spent the evening playing with my phone before grabbing my coat and hopping a bus. The party was off campus, at a house painted purple like an eggplant. In the driveway, a line of kids sat on their knees, puking into the bushes. 2 others smashed up a flat-screen TV with aluminum bats. It felt like home. I got inside and saw her immediately, talking with Jerome and Paige. She saw me too and smiled with sad eyes. It took me 4 beers alone in a corner before finally summoning the nerve to approach her. Hey. Hey, she said. Want to smoke? She looked over at Paige and Jerome, shrugged, then back at me. Sure. We went outside and I bummed her a butt. I told her I was sorry, that it was just me being a freak, that it was just homesickness, that I was losing my home, that I still liked her a lot, but I was real fucked up. She cupped the back of my head and ran her fingers through my hair and leaned in and kissed me. I don't mind real fucked up. I nearly fell apart. Okay. She kissed me gently again. Want to get out of here? Yeah. She drove me back to the dorms and we went up to her room. Wait just a sec. She disappeared inside, shutting the door to just a crack, shuffling sounds, things being moved. Then she popped back out, pulling at my hips. Okay, come in. I tried not to look at her dresser, but did anyway. Everything was gone. None of the candles or herbs or hair or anything. I was drunk, so I just pointed and asked where it went. She looked away a little. Jared told me it weirded you out. I leaned into her, hooking my chin over her shoulder blade. You didn't have to do that. She squeezed me tight. It's okay. Jerome said you were Wiccan. She rolled her eyes. He would say that. It's different. I mean, I don't even really believe in it or anything. It's just something I do to keep my head straight. I asked her to show me. Okay. She went over to her mini fridge and took out a half-filled water bottle. Bits of ashy paper floated inside. You don't have anything you got to do tomorrow, right? I shook my head. She handed me the water bottle. Just take one big gulp. I held the bottle up and looked at the bits of gray and purple paper dancing inside. I popped off the cap and took a big gulp. It tasted like plastic. She took the bottle back, took a gulp herself, and returned it to the fridge. She took my hand and led me over to the dresser. She bent over and picked up the box full of her things, carefully setting each item. 3 candles, 4 bundles of herbs, a horseshoe, a nest of hair. She lit the candles with her lighter. Okay. She slipped beside me, kissing my neck and running her fingers across my belly and up to my breasts. Now do this, she whispered, and began quietly humming behind my left earlobe. I hummed with her, and the air vibrated as we slipped in and out of harmony. Yeah, the dissonance is good. Now look between the candles. She hummed with me again, and her fingers unsnapped my jeans, brushing my pubic hair, reaching down and pressing on my clit. My voice vibrated against hers, and the air wobbled. Keep going, she said, and watch. Her fingers rubbed half-moons in my groin. My hum stuttered. Hers matched mine as I shook against her, feeling her heartbeat on my back. She held me tight. Our tones locked together. A light gust hit my face, and slowly, between the candles, a tiny rabbit appeared, dancing on its hind legs. Lou. I poured the salt. I knelt at her shrine. I lit each of the candles. I blew gently through my lips. I unzipped my pants, stroking up and down, nestling in between the beats. 100 years, 1,000 years. The strings lapped at my skin, gazing through the walls to the complex, to the outside, gazing through the town, the woods, across the landscape, the molten trees and curling brush, across the plains, rolling purple and black clouds spreading across galaxies, unable to see any trace of the invaders Arnie spoke of, as though they existed only in him. I closed the gate and swept up the salt. Amir. I got home from the bridge. A dead dog lay in the driveway, its head caved in like a red rotten pumpkin, swollen with flies, a red-stained chunk of cinder block lying next to it. Later that night, Tyler told me he just wanted to feel in control of something again. I went to bed shaking. Jill. He's so far away, but I see him. I keep inhaling his scent. My body smells like him, like his teeth and hair and red swollen wounds. I see him, flat, a body and face like an empty balloon. He smiles, an orange cord in his hands, its length floating out toward me from back home, fibers wrapping around my wrists. It feels like his skin, like his hands around my waist and then my neck. I woke up. The bed, Maddie's bed, was empty. I looked around, letting my eyes adjust. Maddie stood, backed against the wall, clutching between her breasts, soaked in sweat, shivering, a frown torn into her face. "Who is that?" she said. "What do you mean? Who is that with you?" "I don't know what you're talking about," I lied. She pointed to the door. "You have to go. Now." Lou. The next morning, Arnie was already up and wet before I left for work. "You're not going out there, right?" he said. "I have to. They'll get you, and then they'll come in here." I crawled back into the mattress and hugged him close. I whispered that it was going to be okay, that no one was trying to get in. I started to leave, and he went all the way wet. I put a sheet between his heart and mine and caught the 8:15 bus to downtown and Golden Market. I headed toward the back to put my coat away when our manager, Transy, came up behind me and said my name. "Can we have a quick word?" I nodded, and she brought me to her office. Maximum blue, maximum cold. "First of all, I want to make sure you understand that what I have to say in no way reflects your job performance, because it doesn't." She spoke slowly, like in a voice reserved for a child. "Okay. We're cutting back hours across the board. It's not just you, so until further notice, we can only give you 20 hours a week." "Okay." Maximum cold, maximum blue. She grinned big. "Thanks for being such a trooper." I worked my shift and caught the 3:15 bus back home. Arnie was still in our bedroom under the covers. I poured salt. I knelt at her shrine. I lit the candles. I gently blew through my lips. I unzipped my pants, stroking up and down, nestled in between my beats. The strings washed over me. I'm in an alabaster room. The dot on the wall speaks to me. But she did not put the blame on her staggering old age or the dark clouds that barely permitted her to make out the shape of things, but on something that she herself could not really define and that she conceived confusedly as a progressive breakdown of time. The years nowadays don't pass the way the old ones used to, she would say, feeling that every day reality was slipping through her hands. To my right is a wall-length window, a room reflected in the glass, a different room than the one I inhabit. I pull the tubes and cables from my skin and nose and stand. Behind the glass is the golden market, tinted blue and gray, as though I'd been drowned far beneath the ocean. Inside, people with bloated faces and sallow skins sway on their feet, occasionally pulled by tangled clumps of strings. Eyes filled by black and blank. I put my hands to the glass, and it gently pushes through, no resistance at all. The rest of my body follows, and I float into the store. The people don't see me, or if they do, they don't respond to my presence. They're somewhere between sleep and death, or the space between breaths and heartbeats. A walking apnea. I float through the aisles, the flood smelling rotten, bottles filled with sand and mold. I float to the back of the store, into Tansy's office. She sits in her chair, rocking back and forth, her eyes black, like a shark's, streams of drool, streams of string pouring from her mouth and her blouse. I float down, my body falls through hers, and I feel the inside of her form, a nervous twitching, ancient traumas. My strings flood her lungs, weaving into an impossible knot, a sick purple tumor. I'm so sorry, I whisper. When the tumor is complete, I open my eyes and disappear. I spurted and closed the gate, washed my hands and went to bed. The next day I went to Tansy's office and asked for more shifts. She was on the verge of going wet. There's nothing I can do, she said. Plague-pale skin, dark rings around her eyes. She hacked and coughed, spitting black and purple phlegm into her Kleenex. There's nothing I can do. Amir. He drowned the apartment in piss, fucking smashing through my bedroom door in the way, early morning. Naked, skin ripped to shit. His waist shrunk so small I could have choked it, pissing streams into what little I owned, punching holes in the walls and windows, reducing his knuckles and forearms to wet pulp, pacing the rooms with an extension cord tied in a loop wide enough to fit a head through. Jill. I spent the day in bed, under a comforter, clutching my sides, feeling like ruins, a pile of rubble, totaled, the shit she'd had me drink still coursing through me, making the space throb. Tilly bopped in and out, blasting redneck rap from her cell phone. I pressed my fingernails into my palm, wondering if they were sharp enough to slit her throat. "Hey," she yelled. "Hey!" "What?" "Someone's here for you. Jesus." I sat up and let the comforter fall from my face. Maddie stood in the doorway, that sad smile. I got up and walked into the hall, slamming the door behind me. "I'm so sorry," she said. "That was so shitty of me." "Whatever. It's fine." I tried not to make eye contact. She looked exhausted, but still beautiful. She grabbed my hands. "Hey, it's not okay. You don't deserve that." I let her pull me close. I wanted to say I didn't deserve it, but I just kept my mouth shut, feeling her warmth and grit. Lou. Arnie hid beneath the card table again, a careless and bent oval of salt poured around him. I crawled under and put my arms around his waist. "They're coming in," he said. "Okay." I stroked his hair. "They're coming for me." "Okay." He was silent for a long while. Finally, I told him about my hours. His eyes widened. "So you can stay here with me." "I still have to work, but you can stay here longer." I pulled away. "Arnie, we need money." A thick metal sheet slipped between my heart and his. "But they're coming for me." I went all the way wet. "We need money." I got up, and we didn't say anything else to each other for the rest of the night. Amir. Chucky's SUV ripped through the parking lot, so I booked upstairs to my room and locked the door. I listened to Tyler's footsteps clatter down to meet him, the door unlocking and opening, muffled conversation, footsteps ascending back up the stairs. a fist slamming on my door. "What?" I shouted. "Open up." I'd expected Tyler's voice. It was Chucky's. I got up, inhaled, and opened the door. He stood there with black eyes and a big grin, holding a blue duffel bag. "Mind if I come in?" I stepped out of the way. My stomach twisted around. Chucky shut the door behind him and stared at me with massive black pupils. "Long time no see." "Yeah." I looked away. "Been busy." I see that. Real trill." He bit his lip and looked around. "You've been doing good work." He stuffed his pinky up his nostril and blew a wad of mucus onto the carpet. "I'm a happy boy." "Good. I'm glad." "It is good. It so is. Real trill. Yo, I've got a little thing I'd like you to do for me." "Yeah?" "Yeah, but just you. As in, only you and me know about this. You feel me?" "Yeah." "Like, I love Tyler, but, you know." I did. "So I want you to hold on to this bag for me." He handed me the duffel bag. "I'll make it worth your while." The bag's weight seemed to shift moment to moment, and at times like it was filled with hand weights, and others like it was filled with feathers. "For how long?" "Just a little bit." "What is it?" His smile vanished. "You know you're not ever supposed to ask that." "Right. Okay. This is between you and me, right?" "Right." He smiled again. Trill. Be seeing you." He opened the door and exited, winding around Tyler's room. I stuffed the duffel bag in my closet. When he finally stumbled outside, his SUV roared out of the parking lot. I dug the bag out of the closet. Inside were 9 tightly wrapped bricks of ashy purple leaves. I zipped it up and stuffed it back in the closet, tossing all my dirty clothes on top. Jill. I told her about Tyler, as best I could. Sometimes I don't remember what it was like, at all. It's just blank. She told me it'd make sense to me someday. I asked her to show me her ritual again. I wanted to learn. She brought me back to her dorm. We sipped from the bottle. We lit her candles. My hum stuttered against her hum. My body shuddered against her body, falling in and out of harmony. The air shifted. We pulled the rest of our clothes off and lapped at each other until we quaked all the way in tangled arms and legs. I drifted and dreamed of rabbits and green fields and her face, dripping gold. Lou. I woke up alone on our mattress, the clock burning blue in the dark. 3:38 a.m. The door was open. Something clopped in the room over. I slipped through the dark into the living room and switched on the light. Arnie stood, pointing a knife at my face, mouth a shallow cave, eyes frozen, dead lava. He took 2 steps toward me. "Arnie," I said. He took another step. "Arnie." His face shifted. His lips tremored and his eyes came lithe and glassy. The knife fell from his hand to the floor, almost slicing his feet. "You're here," he said. "You're here." I went into the bathroom and locked the door behind me and curled into the shower. Arnie slumped against the door and whined. I didn't even try to sleep. Amir. Tyler sat on the couch, staring into his lap. "What did Chucky want?" "Just to sell me some shit," I said. "Oh." He still wouldn't look at me. "You've got customers at the bridge in an hour." "Shit. Give me notice next time." "It's not my fault you get up when you do. I've been up for hours." Sometimes it seemed like you didn't sleep at all. "Whatever. Who is it?" He finally looked up. "Does it fucking matter? They want Zans and Adderall." I put on my least dirty clothes and loaded up my backpack, got on my bike and hauled to Lily Williams Bridge. I threw the bike in some bushes, slid down the trail to the riverbank and waited. 1 hour. I texted Tyler, but he didn't respond. Kicked rocks into the river. 2 hours. Texted Tyler, called him. No answer. I climbed back up the trail, dug my bike out and headed home. Tyler was in the same spot he'd been when I'd left, watching another video of anime girls dying, this time torn apart by gunfire. "No one showed," I said. "Yeah?" He didn't look up. "Yeah." "Shit." He slowly ground his teeth, gnawed. His eyes turned to black holes. I went upstairs and dug the duffel bag out from under my clothes. I unzipped it and counted the bricks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Only 8. I went back downstairs, slapped Tyler in the face and asked him where the 9th was. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. He still wouldn't look at me. "I know you took it," almost in tears. "Who the fuck else would have taken it?" He shrunk his voice into a mocking whine. "I don't know what you're talking about." I went back upstairs and kicked in his bedroom door. It stank of old sweat, puke, and piss. I kicked through the humps of clothes,
pulled up his mattress, and tore out his closet. Nothing. Then I saw it, a pile of purple leaves atop his closed laptop. I grabbed the computer and threw it into the wall. The leaves fluttered in the stale air. The plaster caved into a dent, and the laptop broke apart. The windows collapsed into shards. You fucking idiot! Tyler stood in the doorway, finally looking me in the eyes. Still nothing behind them. You fucking idiot. Jill. I made it to winter break, and I had no place to go home to. I sure as hell wasn't going to Virginia, so I got a waiver to stay on campus through the month. You sure you don't want to come with me? Maddie asked. My parents would love you. I almost said yes, but I couldn't get that close yet. That worry that she'd get sick of me. Okay, she said, but here. She gathered her altar into a box and pushed it into my arms. Keep these safe for me. We kissed and fooled around, and she said she'd miss me. I already missed her. Lou. Arnie was in a separate space from me now. Even if I could have pulled his body into mine, I wouldn't have seen what he saw or felt what he felt. And I knew that if I didn't leave then, that he would have ground me into ash. I had nothing left in Kinsfield. I packed a bag while he was asleep and hid it outside, beneath a shrub. I wrote a note and folded it into my pocket. I won't tell you what it said. Then I went back to bed. I got up earlier than usual. I kissed Arnie's forehead. He stretched and twisted under the blanket. Where are you going? He whispered, eyes still closed. To work. Okay. He started snoring again. I laid the note on our shrine, collected my bag, and hopped the bus. Stopped by Golden Market and taped a letter of resignation to the door. Stopped by an ATM and emptied out my checking account. Headed to the Greyhound station. I was a baby shedding old teeth. Something electric crawling inside my face. The soles of my shoes clapping off the concrete. All the lawns feeling wild and verdant. And above my head everything soared vast, opening up, orange and red emerging from inky blue. Fresh watercolors swimming far out past the atmosphere. And I left knowing it would ruin him. For decades I've told myself I had no other choice, but now I know that probably isn't true. Sometimes I tell myself I was only a child then, but usually I know that also is a lie. I don't know how long he lived. I want to believe he's still there, but I can't. That would be unfair of me. I can only hope he lived longer than I estimated, and that it was gentle when he left. I bought a bus ticket to Boston. Throughout the half-dozen-hour ride, I hummed to myself as children screamed and men and women threw up, keeping my eyes out the window, watching trees and mountains turn to plains and glass and concrete, past becoming future. I reached the station and took the T into Fenway before heading down David Orts Drive to Brooklyn Avenue on foot, into Fullerton Street, following the sidewalk until the space grew familiar. I found Max's apartment building. I hit the buzzer maybe 20 times. No answer. I sat beside the door. The sun ebbed over the horizon, and a narcotic dark fell. The surrounding towers and complexes flickered in a state of half-life. I hugged my bag to my chest and belly. It felt like a pillow filled with glass, my mind running through everything I'd lost or thrown away. Too tired to cry, I nodded in and out of brief slumbers, internal flashes of black ropes in Arnie's face, but through a veil, already so far from where I was now. Clusters of legs and feet swept past, then a familiar laugh. Max walked with another man, hand in hand. They untangled their fingers, and Max reached into his jeans, removing a set of keys. They huddled up to the door. I reached my hand toward him. He didn't see me. Uncle Max, I said. He looked down. His face washed 1,000 different ways, but all soft and lukewarm. Lou? What are you doing here? No knives in his voice. Hundreds pushed through the other man's face. What the fuck, Max? The man said. Max knelt down and tousled my hair. You okay, Palsy? I nodded. What the fuck? The man said again. Max turned back to him. It's my goddamn nephew. The man's face changed, switching blue and pillowy. He lifted his hands to his mouth and knelt down beside Max. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Max ignored him, turning back to me. What are you doing out here? Your folks around? I shook my head. His eyes changed. He took my hand and pulled me to my feet. Let's get you inside, he said. Max's building was a husk, a remainder from 100 years prior. We pushed into the elevator, and it shuddered upward, tremors like old hands. The bell chimed on the 7th floor, and Max led me to his apartment. We went inside, filled with books, not just on shelves, but stacked into towers as high as my chest.
walls covered in paintings of men and women with purple skin contorted and screaming. And Max sat me on his couch. The other man went to another room. I told Max that I didn't know where else to go. I went all the way wet, saying, I'm sorry, over and over. Max leaned in and hugged me close, both soft and muscular. It's okay, he said. It's okay. He went to go make tea. I coiled onto the couch and fell asleep almost immediately. All the world is water. It's always been. It took me 18 years to drown. My body bloats and inflates, pushing in a direction I only know is up. My skin breaks a surface I never knew was there, and water slipping off my knees, chest, and face. I breathe, dying become who I need to be. The world is bright light, and it's inside me too. I'm there right now. Amir. I gathered up leaves from the sidewalk, tore them up and baked them until they turned black. They didn't look anything like the leaves in the bricks. I went out and bought a children's paint set from the Dollar Tree and soaked the leaves in purple paint and baked them again. They looked even worse. A fist hammered on the front door. I looked through the window and saw Chucky's SUV. Open up, he whooped. I almost couldn't breathe at all. I opened the door. Chucky smiled wide, big void pupils. What's good, brother? He came in for a hug. I stayed stiff. Let's go up to your office. We headed up the stairs, each step creaking like a dying nerve. I wondered how much blood I'd have to lose before I passed out. We stepped into my room. I opened the closet, scooped up the duffel bag, and handed it over to him. He lifted the bag twice, like a hand weight, screwing up his face. He unzipped it, looked inside, then back at me. One's missing. What? I'd been practicing my big fucking idiot look in the mirror. There are supposed to be 9 bricks in here, and there are only 8. He zipped the bag up and set it on the floor. That means one's missing. I didn't even know what's in there, man. I didn't even look. He rolled his eyes. Of course you looked. Everyone looks. He reached toward his waist. I turned and started toward the door. Chucky caught my elbows and grabbed my shoulder, swinging me into the wall, so hard the plaster gave. He twisted my arm around my back, pressing me into the fresh dent. I kicked and screamed and tried to worm away, but he pushed me down and batted at the side of my face. Hey, it was your fucking boyfriend, right? I yelled and gurgled. Just say it was your boyfriend. That's all you gotta do. I just kept yelling. He got up off my back and kicked me in the face. My eyebrow exploded. I cried and screamed and just lay there as Chucky collected the duffel bag and headed for Tyler's room. I heard crying and things breaking, all of life twisting into a shiv. Tyler's door slammed shut, and Chucky stomped past my room, peeking in at me. Just get me my shit. I don't like doing this either. He stomped down the stairs and out of the door. Aching, I got up and dragged myself from the room and down the hall. I nudged open Tyler's door. He lay in the center of the floor, sprawled like Christ among broken glass and particle board, banged up but not as much as he could have been. He heaved and coughed. You and me are done, I said. Forever. I spat on his chest, then on his face, and I left.